Welcome back to another episode of the Wirex Podcast. Today, we're talking about startups in the AI age and tackling a big question. Do founders need to think like machines to thrive? Joining us is someone who knows this space inside and out. Jorge Antonio, co-founder and CTO of Atoma Network. Hey, George.
Hey, hello guys. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's a great pleasure being
Thanks
here
for
and
being
discuss
here.
about the topic. Yeah.
Yeah, from navigating machine-like efficiency to embracing creative human thinking, George will share his insights on how founders can adapt, lead, and innovate in an AI-driven world. Let's get started. So, George, maybe let's start with your professional background and how you got into where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will start with my academic background. I did a PhD in mathematics back in 2019. I studied in France. After that, I joined the industry where I was working as a AI software engineer for a US trading firm. I worked for 2 years where we were basically exposed to financial markets, data pipelines, training and deploying models at scale for tracking financial markets and whatnot. And after 2 years, I decided to jump from TradFi, traditional finance, to the Web3 world. And so this was like around 2021, where basically I started working as software engineer for different protocols. I worked as a Rust smart contract developer, where I was part of a team that built a high TVL protocol, DeFi protocol in the last bull cycle on Solana. And then I went on to work on more um, core infrastructure related things around highly scalable consensus protocols on Tari Labs. I'm also one of the top contributors at Plonky Tree from the Polygon Zero team, which is one of the fastest decay proving frameworks as of today. And roughly 1 year and a half ago, I started Atoma Network, which is building decentralized AI infrastructure for secure private AI that can power on-chain applications as well as more Web2 apps.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So, what does it mean for a founder to think like a machine? Is it about efficiency, logic, or something else?
Yeah, so basically the way I see it, especially in this new AI age, is that we as humans and as founders and engineers, etc., we are basically exposed now to um, much more like data, much more information along the web, right? So I think we don't necessarily need to start thinking like machines in a way. Like we can still think as humans. We still have like our thought processes, our rationale behind problems, our ideas, how we'll tackle some like challenges and whatnot. And I think that's an important component that makes us humans. But the fact that right now we have access to these like large language models, to generative AI, just makes us exposed to much more information, much more like different ways to tackle the challenges we face in like nowadays in our daily lives, and both professionally and personally, right? And I think the most important thing here is about adaptation, right? Being able to adapt to this new age, being able to like process more and more information, becoming more productive now that we have these tools. So that also implies that we need to learn how to use these tools, right? And and this will completely shape the way that we think about problems, the way we even express ourselves, and the way that we collaborate with others.
I love the fact that you mentioned that it helps us to think about our problems, right? Like a different way of looking at our problems. And I've always thought that, AI is actually helping us to ask better questions, because I think, before, we don't really think too much about the questions that we ask sometimes, right? So yeah, thank you so much for that. How can founders balance data-driven insights with intuition when scaling their startups?
Exactly. So I think like human intuition is very relevant, and it's possibly even more relevant nowadays. And to basically, you intuition is built upon knowledge, upon experience, etc. Right. So the current like this current like advent of artificial intelligence just gives you the possibility to access like to ask any question about any topic and get like very detailed information about wherever you are asking for, right? And so this means that we can now access like and filter and summarize these enormous quantities of data with just like a few prompts, right? And this completely shapes the way that we can extract insights from this data, etc. So I can give you an example. Like companies usually tend to like every quarter or so to like release some reports on their like financial status, what happened, like their sales, expenses, revenue, etc. Right. So you like usually these reports are pretty lengthy, pretty detailed, and it's very hard for someone that has like a busy schedule to just go and extract whatever insights it needs to from this, right? Right now is current like AI models like ChatGPT, open source models like Llama, etc. You can just like query, like basically fetch some PDF with a lot of data, and you can just start asking the model, what can I extract about this topic? And you can just filter out tremendous quantities of data to just extract what is relevant to you, right? So before you will have to spend days and days into getting insights from markets, from a wide variety of topics, and now things have become they are basically accelerated, right? They are you can basically extract all these insights with like for free, and this is very powerful. Another example is imagine that you want to write a piece of software or you want to write like a research article, right? You can basically you can leverage these models to improve the way that you write or that you produce software or write research, right? And this just makes just increases the speed, the productivity of teams, of individuals and companies overall. And this is very important. And so basically we are talking here about like a compounding effect, right? You become more productive because of these tools. So you can produce more, you can generate more data, and now you can basically extract more data insights, produce more, and this will generate more data that can be then analyzed, right? And I think we are basically at the cusp where we'll see an exponential growth in basically in economic growth in a way, and we will have to basically adapt and learn how to use these tools in the most effective way so that we can basically be on pair with what's currently happening in the majority of fields that every one of us is working on, right? And these will just and basically this is a process where these machines are just like providing us with more insights, more filtered, curated data that will be relevant for us to build more intuition, to build more like knowledge about the topics of our expertise and whatnot, right? So in my own experience, my personal experience, I feel like since I've started using these tools for roughly 1.5 years ago, I've learned much faster than ever I did before, right? And the reason is because, as I mentioned, like I can very easily prompt these models to get all the info I need. So before, I remember like a few years ago, I had to learn some difficult topics around mathematics, software engineering, financial markets, and whatnot. And usually, these will take me days and days to really get to know these topics, to build my intuition around the topics, so that I could use them in my profession. Right now, I basically feel much bolder in a way because I know that I can learn and extract information much faster. I can basically easily get like insights that I was not able to necessarily extract myself just alone. but the fact that I know what I'm learning and I can ask these models to guide me on specific things, that's very powerful. And I think this will just unlock, as I mentioned, an exponential growth in the way that humans interact with technology and the way that we build our rationale and knowledge.
Yeah, thanks for that. I mean, like, I've heard people talk about how sometimes, and I think there's even like disclaimers, right? That the AI may not always give you 100% accuracy in terms of like data. So you know how can we mitigate that and to just ensure that we've got the right data? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's true that the current models, they still, we call, like we say that they hallucinate in a bunch of topics. So you need to be very mindful how you trust these models and the way that we interact with these models. So for example, I feel like the prompting, knowing how to write the prompt, to structure your prompt, to tell the model this is exactly what you should do. It's an important step into making these systems reliable. And you can do this in various ways, right? There is this whole domain that is pretty recent, but it's called prompt engineering, where you basically it's the art of writing prompts that give very specific instructions to the model so that they can follow these instructions step by step and provide the best possible answer to you. I will say that for the majority of people, like the majority of users, they just want to have like a quick answer to their responses, right? And it happened to me that I just asked these models like briefly what, for example, what this data means, or what insights can I extract from this article. And it turned out that the model gave me incorrect answers. And so it's also part of this human process to have like some sort of capacity to distill ourselves as humans what the model is giving us, and if this information is correct. I'll say that one good thing is that models are becoming better and better, and they hallucinate much like the new generational models. They hallucinate much less than the previous generation, and this is both for closed and open source models. So I think we'll get to a point where these models just become more reliable because they tend to improve over time, right? Following some scaling laws. Another thing is that we as humans, we start to like collectively build an intuition and an understanding how to interact with these tools, right? So in the same way the models improve, humans will also naturally improve to use these models, right? So you can think like a few years, like a decade ago or something like that, a lot of people didn't necessarily were like very let's say like people might not have knew how to interact with the internet in the best way possible, but collectively we got much better at it, the same way with crypto, right? So I think over time people just like develop soft skills that will allow them to guide these models towards being more accurate as well. And another important aspect is that a lot of tools are being built and will be built over the coming years to that just enforce grab rails to these models so that they become as aligned as possible. It's not just like on the human side and on the specific model side, but also on the software stack that you can build on top of like large language models that let them become much more accurate overall. So I can give an example. There is like this IDE for software development called Cursor, which is pretty well known like software development. A lot of engineers use it, and it became as like uh, a tool that was not that helpful to a point where right now is extremely helpful. And it's not just like because it uses the best models out there, but because the engineering team made like a conscious effort to make this ID very reliable. They have somehow they found the right prompts, the right like knowledge extraction to give to the model that makes the app itself extremely reliable and extremely accurate. and these basically enhances developers like 10x, right? Which is incredible. And we will see this more and more with the advent of AI agents and whatnot.
Yeah, and in some ways, it just reminds me also of how, with human development, we have to be able to spot like someone's strengths, right? And to kind of like develop that. So I feel like it's almost the same with AI. So what traits of an AI system, if any, do you think every startup leader should embody?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think leadership, I think it's currently important that you, so for example, internally at Atoma, we use these AI tools on our like professional daily lives, like everyone. And we even had like, we had a few sessions in team where we will basically guide some of our team members to use tools in a certain way. And for example, learning how to use these tools, we basically share our insights with everyone. And so we make sure like there are a few, it's not, we right now, we don't just like develop software, but we also make sure that every code that is written is basically using these AI tools in a specific way. And everyone is using that in a way so that it becomes quite homogeneous on our code base, how we use these tools. And I think this is very important. So there is like a whole CI/CD pipeline that is basically, you can think for people that are not aware, in software development, it's basically a way that you can ensure before your code goes into production that what it's claimed to do is actually done in a very robust way, and this is done through like testing, continuous integration, deployments, etc. Right? It's basically a very complex stack on that. And I think the AI realm just got its foot on this as well, where like teams right now they want to have certain like AI insights being plugged into what you produce, right? And this is clearly a trend in software development, but I believe it's also on other fronts as well, like business development, marketing, content generation, recruitment, etc., etc., etc. Right? So basically, I think it's important for the leadership to embrace these technologies, make sure that everyone is on pair on what are like the good first principles for a company or a community to put forth like the prompts, the way to interact with these AI models. And yeah, I think it's the time to embrace these technologies because the teams that do embrace it and they will become more and more productive. And these are just first steps. Second steps is when we'll integrate AI into our organizations, our teams, in our companies, right? I guess we'll talk more about it later.
Yeah, I mean, something that you mentioned just now, when you were talking about, having your team almost like be on the same page in terms of like the way you prompt. I kind of see that in a very similar way to how, in Web3, Web2, we talk about company culture. So in some ways, I feel like there's a parallel to that, right? So yeah, can a founder who doesn't understand AI still succeed in today's tech-driven startup world, you think?
I mean, I think is becoming increasingly more difficult for someone without any AI knowledge in a way to make an impact because we live in an environment which is highly competitive, and it's very unlikely that you'll be the only one in like building technology for a specific niche, right? We are in an age, in the knowledge, in the information age, the attention age, where basically ideas are just not mere ideas, right? Once an idea is out into the public, a lot of people start executing on it. And so there is like high competition across different tech sectors. And it's very likely that if you are working on some specific problem and you are building technology to tackle that problem, it's very likely that one competitor is doing the same, but he's leveraging AI, and so um, that gives like a very big like advance
Advantage.
for the advantage for the competitor, right? So that's an important thing to have in consideration. Like I would say that right now, maybe some really niche areas, that require very specialized knowledge, they might be basically a founder might be okay without necessarily relying on AI, especially because these AIs are not necessarily the most capable for very niche, like PhD level tasks, let's say. But this is actually changing, and there have been like announcements by OpenAI and whatnot that they have basically the new model O3 that will be launched this month has PhD level capacity. So even these very niche fields will have to adapt and will have to integrate like AI. The good news is becoming acquainted and becoming more proficient with AI is also becoming more available to everyone, right? It's like we can start today interacting with these AI tools. There are a bunch of like there's thousands of like examples on the internet, thousand like tremendous content on how we can prompt these models in the best possible way, how we can extract and leverage the insights by these models. So at this point, there is no reason for a founder, an engineer, business person to just go and start leveraging these tools.
Yeah, but it also feels like, with AI systems, the the more money you have, right, the more you can kind of like leverage AI in a better way, because then you've got more, I guess. I mean, I'm just throwing these terms out there, okay? Like the GPU and the chips and all of that, right? Because a lot of these AI platforms are also, I guess, they have like uh, payment guardrails, right? Where you can only do so much for free, and then you've got to pay if you want more in-depth research or whatever that is. So yeah, that's just a thought that kind of came to
Yeah,
me.
yeah. So I'll say, I mean, definitely. But I will say that the subscriptions for these to access these, even the best models out there in the market, they are pretty low, and even like as I mentioned, like the best models out there, like ChatGPT o1, etc., o1 Pro, they are more expensive, but um, we currently have like open source alternatives like DeepSeek R1 that was just released yesterday that are pretty on pair, pretty comparable to these like best reasoning models. And open source models are order of magnitude less expensive, and they are basically widely available. The main reason that I see for teams, founders, etc., to not use AI is regarding like privacy concerns. So imagine that I have some company, maybe can be like working on financial markets, and we have all these specialized like software stack that is incredible at extracting financial information, and I definitely don't want to share this like let's say with OpenAI or some other like third party, right? So this is an actually important reason why basically teams don't are not allowed to use these tools. I know a few examples. I know I have people working in the banking sector that they are not allowed to prompt ChatGPT while at work. Samsung also released some news about they don't let their basically employees to use OpenAI, even though I think they basically retrieve that condition, because like you will see that like your employees cannot be as productive as your competition, right? So the fact like privacy concerns are extremely relevant for the discussion as well. So if you are a team and you are building close source software, or you're building like proprietary infrastructure, you might not want to you might want to preserve these at all costs, right? But even in the privacy aspect, there are alternatives. One of them is Atoma, the project that I'm building, where we provide like full privacy for AI. And so you'll be able to interact with Atoma as the same way that you interact with, let's say, OpenAI, and have access to the best models, open source models, which are incredibly capable at a low cost and full privacy on your data. And this is an opportunity for teams to have full security of their intellectual property, as well as having access to the best intelligence in the market.
Yeah, that's
I don't,
amazing. Uh, and AI thrives on feedback loops, right? So what can founders learn from this approach to improve their leadership or products?
yeah, absolutely. So I think it's I kind of already mentioned this. So one thing is just making everyone more productive, including the founders, the team members, everyone, right? The second part is that you can basically, like I will say that it's easier now to understand by just extracting data from the market, data from customers, data from partners, etc., and basically enhance this with intelligence for like summarization, key insights, etc., to just get these feedback loops immediately, right? And you can use these models along all the pipe, all the step, including like, is the way that we are building our product the best possible way, or are there like new ways that we haven't thought about that could be put in force that we can leverage to just improve our services, our products, and whatnot. It can be just how you manage people, help you manage people, make everyone more productive overall. And secondly, I think it will become more and more important that basically applications, services, they become more personalized in a way, right? I think that the internet will see a revolution in the coming years where websites, web apps, mobile apps, and whatnot, they become more customized for the end user. So you can offer like better experiences to your customers, and basically the teams can become closer to the customers, right? There can be these like very close relationships that before was not possible. So imagine if I like the color blue more than I like the color red, let's say, maybe our website will extract these insights and just render the graphics in blue instead of red, let's say. And for someone else that prefers a different color, will be different. Um, and of course, this is like kind of a silly example, but just illustrates how these AI models, they can adapt your services, your apps, etc., to the end customer. And I think these AI models will also be able to just extract all these usage, all this information, all these very important data, and give it back to you in a very summarized content form that you can then like quickly iterate over and improve your products over and over again. And here we are basically creating like these feedback loops, these compounding effects that will just make everyone more satisfied with the way they interact with the digital world, and possibly even the physical world.
That's amazing. And as AI becomes more involved in decision making, how can founders ensure that startups don't lose sight of ethics and humanity?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And I think it's still kind of like blur how things will evolve over time. I tend to be quite optimistic about it. I think these AI tools, they will just make the company cultural, like the human interactions, they will just enhance it. And the reason why I think this is, well, right now, especially for like larger companies, there is a lot of say involved administration processes for, let's say, founder wants to add some new feature, or someone in the leading team wants to add some new feature. This might have to go through a bunch of different like people before it gets to the actual implementation, right? And in all this process, there is information transfers that can lead to misunderstandings, to just takes more time overall and consumes more resources, right? And I think AIs that will be used to just make this flow more seamless, more efficient, and basically now you can quickly interact with your team members without having to go through all these processes. A lot of these processes will become automatic through AI. Another important aspect, as I mentioned at the beginning, people will just be exposed to more data, more information overall, right? So there is no reason, for example, for a product manager to not just get to just experiment himself or herself with like experiment. Let's say a product manager has this idea, you can just go into using some AI tools to just make a very, very simple POC and see how is the idea just translates into something more concrete, let's say, and then can easily share this with other employees, let's say. There is no reason why, for example, a software developer cannot actually get access to, let's say, the long-term vision of the company it's working on, because now maybe like all the information about the company is condensed into a format that can be accessed to this AI, and the AI can even explain about like what is the current company doing, what's like the long-term vision, the short-term vision, what are goals, like what will happen, right? So these AIs, they will have so much information about the markets, the company itself, every member in the company, that they can be used in a very positive way for people to just have a much better understanding of not only of their like their role in the company, but about a much more wide spread like understanding of the things happening. And I think this will improve the way that humans interact with each other. It will make everyone more efficient, even in human relations. And I mean, yeah, just to finalize here, again, like privacy again here is a must, especially if you want to leverage AI for improving these process, like intra-company processes. And because otherwise we don't want to basically share our, like, let's say, Slack channel chats, conversations, etc. with OpenAI. We just want to keep them private. And we are basically at a point we can still have access to private AI.
Yeah, I mean, as you were talking, I was also just thinking about how AI could actually, distill really complex information down, right? According to how you learn, So, for example, like if I need metaphors and analogies, I could, ask AI to explain the company culture or the company mission.
Exactly.
The way I would understand it better. And I think that's just really exciting and just amazing. Yeah, if you had to choose between building an AI-driven company and a people-driven one, which would you pick and why?
Well, that's
I don't know whether, yeah, I'm smiling here, right? Because I'm really curious to hear what your answer will be.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very lucky in a way because Atoma is decentralized AI network. So we are basically building on the like on the frontier of AI. We are, uh, as I mentioned, building securing private AI, but we are also optimizing a lot of these processes and making AI more efficient, building some really cool products around like privacy and AI that we are about to share with the community. At the same time, we are also building a community. So like there is like this human component is very relevant for us, right? It's not like, especially in Web3, like communities are not built by bots. They are built by humans that have aligned incentives, right? And this is one of the things that are the most interesting about Web3, about crypto in a way, is aligned incentives between different parties of humans. So I will say that I'm kind of lying at the intersection of the two, which is pretty cool. So especially with these agentic workflows that can leverage Atoma. So we have a bunch of like agentic workflows that we are building for interacting with like different protocols in Web3. And we want these agentic workflows to empower, at the end of the day, to empower our like community members, customers, etc. Right? So everything we do is kind of like at the AI level in a way, but we always have the end, like the human on the other side in the top of our heads, and that's really cool. If I really had to choose one, like between one of the two, so I'm a technical guy, right? So I would always like basically that's what I'm good at, like software engineering, thinking about the problems, etc. So I will just find, I will find like
Are you gonna choose AI over people?
It depends. It depends what it depends what we mean by people. But definitely, I want to build really cool technology with the best people out there. That's one of that's the dream that motivates me every day, every morning. Let's say.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I love the fact that, Atoma, you have a very human-centric outcome in mind, right? With everything that you do. Because I think, as much as, with the rise of AI, we also need to preserve our humanity, right? And final thought, do you think a future where startups are fully run by machines is exciting, terrifying, or inevitable?
I think it's a bit of these three. I think it's both terrifying and exciting in a way, and I also think it's kind of inevitable. It's kind of difficult to predict now what will happen, let's say in 10 years, 5, 10 years from now, and even beyond that, it's even harder, of course. But I think a lot of processes will be just streamlined and will be optimized through AI. And in a way, this is exciting because this will just open the doors for new human endeavors that will most likely be more exciting than what we have been doing so far. Every time humanity sees like a big technological leap forward, we tend to do things that are more appealing. I would say that engineering is more appealing than like strict farming in a way. And I think this progress is pretty positive. It's just like it's terrifying as well because we might be just delegating too much of our daily processes to these AIs. And if these AIs are not necessarily controlled in a way by humans to be aligned with humans, they can be used in a very terrifying way. And I think this is where like security of AI, like verifiability, privacy, some of the values that we are aligned at Atoma are extremely important. Because at the end of the day, when we basically streamline, let's say, governmental actions like big enterprise decisions, etc., to AIs, we want to make sure that these AIs are basically doing the work they are supposed to. And there is nothing in the way that is compelling them to act in any potential malicious form, right? So I think there are big risks in all of this, but I think everyone needs to do their best to mitigate these risks, because at the end of the day, this will be inevitable, right? It's kind of like a rat race to see who will have the best AI systems, and basically, everyone will try to do their best to become more efficient, to have better services overall. So I think that makes it inevitable. But at the end of the day, again, like the first years usually tend to be more chaotic in a way, where it's like this experimental phase where everyone is trying to see what works and what does not work. And this might break a few things here and there. The hope is that this will not be too negatively impactful. But I think over time, when the space matures, when these models become more accurate, when you have like full security, full privacy, and we build like better software on top of these AI models, I think we'll get into a point where we'll basically unleash economic growth, and it will be a thriving era for humanity as a whole. That's my goal and my hope.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think all three, right? And plus, we've opened the Pandora box. There's no way of closing it at all. So we might as well embrace it to shape it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you so much, George, for your insights.
Yeah, thank you so
And-
much. This was super fun.
Awesome. And that's a wrap for today's episode. We hope George's insights have sparked new ideas for founders and aspiring entrepreneurs alike. Stay tuned for more conversations on tech, innovation, and the future of finance right here on the Wirex Podcast.